Wish we could turn back time to the good old days. Like my mama said, I wish I wasn't so stressed out. Hi, welcome to today's show. My name is John Greer, and today we're going to be reviewing the best and worst CIA agents on the internet. Today we have this guy here, Garry Nolan, who is a little green man who specializes in UFOs. Now, today we're going to be watching the member exclusive behind the Daily Wire, which means I'm doing a double cross here as far as crossing the deep state, who doesn't belong in our country, and also show you guys some exclusive behind the paywall content here. Okay, so let's see here. I started this earlier, and I wanted to stop it so I could give my honest first reaction, because I could tell it was going to be good.
5-minute elevator pitch about this in any forum without
Tell me about it.
pointing you at, probably a dozen books that help set the mindset. Charles Fort really thinks about it as a much more paranormal approach, that there's something. Carl Jung has written about UFOs, interestingly, deeply. He was convinced that it's a manifestation of the human mind, some sort of collective unconscious. Who I consider my mentor, Jacques Vallée, basically thinks of it, he calls it a control system, that it seems to act as a system of systems that is occasionally tweaking us to make us think outside the box. If there's any narrative that has gone from the...
By the way, so Garry Nolan, just for some background, I'll put in the exact credentials that he has, but he's basically starting up a government department that's in charge of investigating UFOs, okay? Now, the government is really good at choosing competent people, especially when you're talking about like the 1% of people who are going to be interested in UFOs and things like that. So he should have very, very good background knowledge of everything UFO. He also, interestingly enough, is interested in cancer research and the sorts of things that I know Michael Levin's research also kind of bears on, as far as how cancer is able to fool other cells around them so that the immune system won't attack them. That's basically an interesting thing. So your body actually gets cancers all the time, but how it actually grows and spreads is that a cancer is able to give off a signal and convince all the other cells that it's just a normal cell and it's doing its own thing and don't worry about me. And then it's able to grow and metastasize without everyone noticing. And then we'll kill the body before it's too late.
days of, primitives to today, whether it's spirits in the forest or the gods or God or now technology we think of as God, UFOs, it's you're not alone. Think behind. I think of it as an intelligence test. Can you see what you're looking at and realize it's not?
Why is this so delayed?
What it portrays itself to be. And Jacques came to this conclusion in one of his books in Passport to Magonia and others, where he kept on using this word absurd. It's absurd that a UFO lands in a farmer's field and a little guy in a silver suit gets out, tinkers with the thing, and then gets back in and flies off. It's absurd. It's a kabuki theater. It's a show. If I'm to prove that something is not human, if I get a piece of technology that's so sophisticated that I can't even know what its function is, if I can show that it's made in a way that no human could make it, that to me is the cherry on top that I want to publish one day. And so the UAP Defense Act is one of its purposes will be to actually establish an independent panel of individuals who have TS. I have a top secret clearance now. And they didn't give it to me for no good reason. To sit on a panel that adjudicates the information that comes from...
I'm going to pause here and just go back a little bit. So if you guys remember, around the time period of COVID, there was a guy who worked in one of the government departments who basically got clearance to testify in front of Congress about UAPs, and he wasn't saying everything, but around the same time, people from the government were also calling up people like Eric Weinstein and Sam Harris to talk to them about UAPs and things like that. Now, when this happened at the time, I immediately thought there's something mysterious going on here. Because, first of all, why would the government be contacting podcasters unless the aim of the goal was to disseminate this to the public? And secondly, why are they talking about UAPs? Because aliens, this is all not... aliens haven't been to Earth, guys. Like, I don't know that for sure, but like, the evidence that we have, it's all just lens anomalies that are much simply explained by a lens anomaly than a UFO, okay? And so either we are talking about the greatest scientists being confused and thinking that they're UFOs, or maybe, like, that's it. Or they're lying to you, So anyways.
Various places within the government are saying, okay.
So the next question would be, why would they want to be putting that out there? I have theories that are a little bit grander, but we'll say that. Obviously, they're lying about that. The government does not have aliens, okay?
Okay, well, this is too sensitive. We don't let it out.
For some reason.
My purpose is exactly what you talked about earlier, to figure out what might be practical, that if we could understand it, it could be beneficial to humanity, and to create a public-private research fund that's not funded by the government, because funding by the government is, taking out of one person's pocket to pay another. So if we don't start home growing our own, what better to home grow interest than potential non-human technology and studying it? Imagine being able to make a material where everything is interspersed and where the purpose melds from one place to another, where you can't clearly say it's here or there. That's how I think that, frankly, 10 years from now, the AI that we are developing today will start making materials that we don't understand, or will help us develop things that we don't understand at that level of complexity. So when you're thinking about technology from a civilization...
You also know this guy started showing up everywhere and he came out of nowhere?
Than us. I mean, where are we going to be in 1,000 years? I mean, look at how far we've come in 1,000 years. Mud huts to large language models that are basically almost in many cases indistinguishable if you talk to them from some humans. Now imagine what the accelerating capability of AI will allow for us.
Let's talk about Skywatcher and what you've experienced and what Skywatcher has reported and what you expect of it. Let's start with that.
So Skywatcher has reported some early visuals, just camera visuals of objects moving anomalously that do not have prosaic explanations. And that they have basically, if we take a picture of the sky for several days, you don't see it, we send a signal, and within a certain period of time, these objects have shown up. There's, unfortunately, I've got stuff I can't show you, but it's like,
sure,
we have an object.
That's all the stuff that it's always the most convincing. You would know it if you saw this thing that we can't show you. Apparently, they found some things like in the desert that look like frog skin. That like, ooh, the frog. That's all they say. It looks like frog skin, and he's hinting that it's this multi-purpose, sort of thing that they can't share. But he also needs to find evidence of it. If he did find evidence of it, that'd be the cherry on top. But he already did find it, and he can't talk about it. Okay. Other than that, all the evidence are the sort of shit that I see when I'm filming dust in my room.
What do you say when it's sitting right there in front of you? We have a picture from the ground. Interestingly, from the ground we could see it, but from the air, the guys in the helicopter couldn't see it. But it was right there.
This is absolutely hilarious.
Were you there? Were you there?
I was not. I was not there for that event. I was there for a prior event where we had basically a flyover or something that somebody on the roof saw very close up. We got we had a high motion camera, high motion or high frame rate camera, where we saw something come one way and go back the other, and it looked like a silver sphere. And we calculated it as moving anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000 miles per hour, given the angle of what we were looking at and the speed, number of frames that we caught it in. So there's nothing that I know of. So there's either two ball bearings going at that, speed, within, a foot of the camera, or it was an object, like half a mile away, moving at the speeds I just.
Breaking physics. What is more likely, that the physics were broken, or some dust floated by your camera and moved away? The physics being broken response entails. Tell me.
You asked before, what are the many things it could be? So the simplest explanation is
thank you, Occam's razor.
It's something that's been here a long time that came here from somewhere else. Because if you...
A long time. That's a very simple answer. It must have been a long time
years ago. Somewhere in our galaxy, an intelligent race developed, an intelligent civilization.
See, this is why you just can't completely just trust what people say. You have to turn on your brain a little bit. You know what I mean? For me, it's actually the way I often think and learn is I'll pay attention to someone for a little bit. I'll lock on if they're a good source, and after I 6 months or something of trying to figure out if this person's legit, maybe it's less than that, depends on the person. Then I'll just kind of stop looking into it unless I start I hear something that's contradictory or something that doesn't make sense. I'll investigate. But you just can't hear a person. This guy's an expert. Oh, he must be right. No. And I think after maybe a long time period of locking on and trying to figure out what an honest person is and what makes sense and what's the current state of knowledge, you can get pretty good at being okay, this person makes no sense and I either should investigate them to see if they update my whole framework or there's something else going on.
If one did, it could have, just by mere simple propulsion of 10,000 to 50,000 miles an hour, have spread over the entire galaxy. Now, again, it's not the same person that gets on as gets off. When you get there, with that kind of, let's say, intelligence, you could recreate yourself where you go. This has been written about or shown in numerous movie stories.
We call this having kids.
Is certainly out there as a possibility. So,
well, was it Watson or Crick who proposed an extraterrestrial origin for DNA because he couldn't understand how it could have possibly evolved? I don't remember.
Look at his face. Look at his face as asking this question. Okay, this guy works at the forefront of cancer research and aliens, okay? Those two things are very disparate. How many people should you pay attention to if you're interested in that sort of thing? How many people should you have read? Maybe the person who discovered DNA that also thought it was extraterrestrial. And which one was it? I don't know. I'm not interested about aliens. I don't even fucking believe in aliens, to be honest. I'm not gonna bet on it. But I don't, aliens, that doesn't matter. Yes, I know how probabilities work. I'm not, shut up. But it doesn't matter.
Where you spread over the intelligent.
Look at his reaction. Look at his shaking.
Again, it's out there as a possibility. So,
well, was it Watson or Crick who proposed an extraterrestrial origin for DNA because he couldn't understand how it could have possibly evolved? I don't remember which of the two co-discoverers.
Now he's on. I call him again. He's got his plan.
Interesting papers that came out. One was
something else.
The half-life.
That's a pattern.
DNA complexity as a Moore's law equivalence.
So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I saw that paper. Yeah.
And where if you extrapolate in a straight line back to the time at which DNA would have first been evolved, the core components of life are what? Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen. Just that. Those four things are the majority of what you are made of. They were all like the first elements that were available in the universe after the so-called Big Bang. Right? They were the
After the
first.
so-called Big Bang. Why just throw in so-called?
Wasn't until multiple
Okay.
stellar explosions later did you get the heavier elements. So life in its most simple.
So part of this,
that to me
I'm going to
is
say part of this goal is to, if you're the government and you don't want certain pieces of information getting out, and you know certain people are hubs for that information getting out, whether it be like the Wuhan lab leak or the CIA funding the Wuhan lab leak. I'm just going to bring up that example as one in particular because that's a clear line people know is true and people can follow, okay? Now, if you're the government and you don't want people knowing that, you know there's specific sources putting out that information, what you can do is muddy the waters and compromise those sources as being valuable by giving them tons of bullshit about history, about aliens, about biology, about like astral projections and all sorts of crazy things. And once you do that, and then, you know, if you're like me, and then you go walk up to someone and be like, hey, you know, the Wuhan virus came from a lab, and also they're hiding aliens in the government, and also I could like leave my body and see what the Russians are doing sometimes, you know what I mean? So you can see, people see like, okay, well obviously this person is crazy, because everything they believe is crazy, you know? The best cover for a good conspiracy is a bad conspiracy. And that is a phrase I learned from the writer of Language of Creation, and you should get that book. It's a really good book. So read that first, it'll take you a long time to sort of sink in, you know. And I actually had experienced the same thing. If you guys don't know, I'm actually like the current subject of like a lot of strange situations because I like watching stuff like this and telling people about it. First, I had someone who wanted me to invite me to like a Matthew Pageau like kind of book club sort of thing, the writer of that book, and it was full of a bunch of people were saying me nonsense things basically and trying to confuse me. But
that first question is not, is it here? It's
trying to get me lost in basically schizophrenic images. Like, trust me, this will make sense, and they handed it to me. I'm like, and then after a while, I was like, no, this doesn't make sense at all. You fucking, I had trust in you. You guys are burning my cognitive power. You guys are paying taxes for you guys to educate me. You guys are fucking just sending fucking spooks to hand me bullshit. Like, what is this?
The answer is it can be here. Now the question is
yes, you want to have a dumb, gullible populace. Oh, but you do because you don't have freedom, right? Yeah, that's actually the thing. Sorry, I'll go back here. He's probably saying something I need to hear.
So there's plenty of time for things to get around. So I don't, that to me is, that first question is not, is it here? It's, can it be here? So yes, the answer is it can be here. Now the question is,
whatever can be is here.
You know,
that's like a bastardized version of Murphy's Law.
It cares about humans in the first place, right? I mean, people, you know, the Hollywood trope is they're here to.
If it can happen, it's already happening.
Natural resource.
No.
If anything that we see is a manifestation of its capabilities, we are the least of its concerns. If anything, we're a zoo. I just came back from Africa, 3 weeks in Africa, going to the various nature preserves there. So if anything, it's just, they're just watching what they were billions of years ago. And they have other concerns. That's how I like to think about it. You know, just because I don't worry people. I was on Tucker Carlson once and he says, does it worry me? Why should it worry me? I can't do anything about it in the first place. And if they were going to do anything about us, they would have done it, you know, more recently. But what's interesting though is, and for your viewers, go look up where most of the UAPs are actually seen. They're seen around our nuclear aircraft carriers and they're seen around our nuclear facilities. Why? Because maybe that's the one thing we can do that might hurt them in some way. And if we're about to break out into the local galactic arm and, you know, and we're a bunch of angry monkeys, maybe they want to basically keep an eye on what the angry monkeys are up to lately and what they can and can't do.
Are those areas more surveyed?
Perfect question.
I mean,
yes. Yes. So maybe it's a observer bias. But because they're more...
Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Sorry, he just destroyed his point, and he just goes, it could be. You know what I mean? You should have prefaced that, for one, if he's actually a good scientist who's being skeptical as he claims, who's just like looking into the stuff as he claims. Instead, he just jumps to, yeah. And you could know if that's observer bias or not, because if you like look at the square footage per camera, per mile of camera.
Right, and with credible observers, then it's more...
what does this footage look like? Oh, a dust going a million miles an hour, or...
about 2 years ago...
Oh, sorry. Let's watch him just change consumption.
Right, and with credible observers, then it's more... then it's more credible. Here's an interesting thing that happened. About 2 years ago...
This guy's actually better than some, by the way. Some of them are funny.
On the, so the U.S. defense system has a number of sensors. And as it turned out, when somebody looked, it turned out that our sensors are only, because we're collecting so much data, are so narrowly focused. We're looking for signatures of rockets, signatures of planes. There's a lot of other information that's being collected, but it's being dumped in the garbage immediately. So we pushed to say, you know what, maybe there are capabilities of some of our, near...
I wonder why it's being dumped in the garbage immediately.
Like hypersonic rockets.
You mean the dust? You're throwing away dust?
So let's open the filters.
Wait, sorry. Wait, what do you say there?
You know what, maybe there are capabilities of some of our, near-level adversaries that we need to pay attention to, like hypersonic rockets from Putin.
Okay. I don't remember what the exact difference in like military spending and technology between the United States and Putin. It's large. It's probably similar to like the difference between Mississippi and California. It's not. We're not confused about what kind of technology the Ruskies got going on down there. Okay.
So let's open the filters. And guess what they found? The first thing they found were the Chinese balloons. So the Chinese...
I don't even know where those balloons came from.
in
Because there's no way balloons snuck over into our sensor systems without them seeing them. That's bullshit. I'm sorry.
Your sensors, maybe something.
I don't believe. Hey, maybe the Chinese made silver balloons that we can't detect. I call absolute bullshit. I think I actually talked to someone about that. Someone who's in the military, who I actually think was an agent who was just talking about this for whatever, doesn't even matter. But yeah, I think he said, by the way, there's no way things come in and we don't detect them. And then I told them, like, yeah, those are from us. And they looked at me like, oh, no, that's not what I was saying. And I was like, are you saying that they're aliens, retard? They're not aliens. It's a fucking balloon with a camera on it. That's not an alien, dude. That's not the frog skin you're talking about.
The first thing they find were those Chinese balloons. And they closed the loophole. So, for all one wants to say that this lobbying has no...
Who looks up wonderingly?
Effect, it actually had a perfect...
Frog skin balloons.
That prevented the Chinese from overflying these.
They say the frog skin's supposed to be silver like those balloons. They want you to put this together and think that you're smart for putting together their dumb conspiracy that they put out in breadcrumbs and all of these little podcasts
Just
and shit.
High-altitude balloons with sensor systems. But all of that data is still there waiting to be processed. And so I'm part of other initiatives to get some of the data processed in a secure manner to look for signatures of UAP. But, you don't even have to wait for me. Just look at what this guy, Tim Phillips, has been saying publicly. And what even Sean Kirkpatrick, the former head of Arrow, has said is that, yes, he's the one who talked about the Mosul orb. We're seeing these things all over the planet.
And the orbs, is that a standard sighting?
Yes, it's relative. Well, I mean, it's relatively frequently reported by the military as well as by individuals. the public. But I have less. I don't have less faith in it. But it's so much more easily discredited, and these days, especially with AI. But here's an interesting one.
You talking about AI videos you're finding on the internet? What are you talking about?
Several, let's call them legacy photos of UFOs.
By the way, this guy studies this for like a living. If you watch the whole 2-hour podcast, he doesn't give any at all convincing reason of why he would. He kind of blows off most of it and just like, but it's like, oh, it's important though. There's something here, and then doesn't say anything.
Going back 50.
Because there is nothing.
60 years.
This is a fucking
Somebody noticed that
waste of money.
in these legacy photos, there's of course the central UFO, but there are 3 or 4 round orbs in each of these pictures. So that leads to an interesting problem, right? Here you have things that some people claim were hoaxes, and yet even though nobody had even thought of it before, they thought to put these orbs in them. Or you have these multiple pictures, each of which have a central UFO, but then they have these orbs. It's almost like a signature of authenticity. And so
You mean people repeating the same picture over and over again to make it consistent so people believe it?
As a scientist, I hate a problem that can't be solved. Okay, how do I solve it? How do I solve it? How do I get there? But then one of the other attributes that I think of myself as having is that I hate to see opportunity lost. And so the unprocessed data, the unrealized potential of what these things might mean, I've done enough for humanity with the technologies that I've developed for patients and whatever. So in my spare time, if you will, this is something that none of my colleagues are interested in, or at least fewer previously than they are today. That it's like, well, gee, a grain of silicon changed our civilization. Our civilization is based on silicon and germanium. Imagine if any of this stuff is real, it represents thousands of technology revolutions. If we can just scrape one new idea off the top, what could we do with it?
Let's use that as a springboard for the reverse engineering discussions that you talked about earlier. So I'm not up to speed on those. You mentioned that one of the people that you're involved with in this Sol Foundation has testified to Congress, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, so and that's germane to your sense of technological progress. I'm also curious, and so two questions, the reverse engineering one. The second question would be, you talked about so-called paranormal explanations for these phenomena. I think it was Arthur C. Clarke said that, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So paranormal versus advanced technology is kind of a specious division. But I am curious about something. I studied Rick Strassman's work on DMT, and one of the things that DMT does, which is not really very comprehensible and that shocked Rick Strassman terribly because he was a pretty mainstream investigator, is that DMT experiencers tend to report encounters with beings. And not tend to. It's the standard pattern of DMT experience. And they report something, I guess the scuttlebutt around that, so to speak, is something like beings, I hate to even say this, but beings in other dimensions, that there are dimensional spaces. And
right.
I'm curious, you have a wide-ranging imagination, obviously. Do you know of that work? Do you see any overlap between that and what it is that you're investigating? And so let's go to the reverse engineering first, and then maybe you could address the Strassman question.
So the Strassman question, we can come back to it. The machine elves is what you're talking about.
I'm saying these are psychedelic
That's one name.
Well, there's other creatures too, but yes, the machine elves are the most widely reported,
Right.
I think.
I mean, so I do think that they might be connected, but I don't think that they are necessarily linked in a causal manner. But I suspect that whatever it is that we're talking about in the, let's say, the more material realm would have to be aware of whatever this other stuff is that you're talking about with Straussman, that they have a better sense of reality than, say, we do. But, okay,
So no
reverse
connection.
engineering.
The two things are not connected.
David Grush, under congressional authorization and mandate.
When I said that those beings are psychological projections, I'm not just saying that they're just psychological. That whatever. That gets complicated. Platonic space is weird. I'll just say that.
Sense of reality.
We'll talk about this later.
Okay, but the reverse engineering. So David Grush, under congressional authorization and mandate, was tasked in the DoD with going and looking for these claimed UAP reverse engineering programs. He had no prior interest in it. He was tasked to go do it. And so he goes around and he gets the door slammed in his face multiple times. Now, David has briefed presidents on standard stuff, has a background in, obviously, in the military and signal processing. And he has as many clearances as you could possibly imagine, right the way up, TSSCI, et cetera, all the way up. And he had the door slammed in his face many times when he went and asked the question about this. But then what happened was people from behind those doors peeked out the window and said, by the way, David, here's what is going on. And so he then, because David's brilliant.
What's going on?
And he happens to be a good friend. I speak with him
That guy?
regularly.
Okay. That was crazy.
He basically picked together a picture of illegalities that were ongoing, monies that were being transferred from one place to another. Because he came out as a whistleblower, not because he came out to say UFOs exist. He came out to say that at the very least, UFOs are being used to shuttle money from one place to another, whether they're real or not. And whether this is truly reverse engineering or not, money is being illegally moved from one place to another. That's one of the many things that he said about this, including people's lives being threatened in his life.
It's such a meta mindfuck, dude.
Nowhere near.
I hate all these people.
The incident that happened to me is nowhere near what happened to him.
Oh.
So, but he talks about and has said publicly about the craft that he was told about, that he's seen documentation of, that he could show the representatives behind closed doors, and so-called bodies. And that was, of course, the most explosive. Under oath, in front of Congress. AOC was there. What's the guy from, he's the Democrat from Texas, Moskowitz was there. Luna, Mace, a bunch of others, Burlinson, et cetera. And by the way, David Grush now works in Representative Burlinson's office on this topic. He is now on staff in Representative Burlinson's office, who's one of the more open Republican proponents of this. So, you read the tea leaves. The people who know whatever they need to know, like Marco Rubio and Senator Schumer and Senator Rounds, have all openly stated that this is worth investigating. So it's not just some crazy Stanford professor, because he's got nothing better to do, is doing this. I'm doing this because it's the most exciting thing I've ever done in my life. Right?
I bet it is. That is the truest thing he's said this entire podcast.
If anybody says there's no evidence, they haven't taken even 5 minutes to look at it. And I tell my colleagues, don't tell me there's no evidence if you haven't spent at least a day looking into the evidence. If you want me to give you the books, I'll tell you which ones to start with. And if you can refute 5 of the stories in those books, then I'll stop working. And I was told by a guy who is now unfortunately deceased, but I won the Lifetime Achievement Award in his name. He later said, "Oh, you were right," which is what I respect about people like that. That they can say, "Okay, well, you're wrong. Prove it to me." So, it's that drive, I guess, is what motivates me here. It's that dual drive of being told it's not something I should be asking, and then the opportunity that I see, for
Well, Dr. Nolan,
ignoring it.
that's probably a good place to. That's a good conclusion. That's a good landing place, I would say. And so, thank you very much for talking to me today. It's going to be fascinating to continue to follow your work. And I'd like to thank everybody on the Daily Wire side for their time and attention to this topic. You mentioned a couple of books. Do you want to just name a couple of them that people could delve into?
Well, I would read Jacques Vallée's Passport to Magonia, which will give you a very wide view of what the
folklore to flying saucers.
What's going on. Another is by Robert Powell, and it's basically.
By the way, that's actually how I learned. There's that one guy on the internet. It's like I think it's called like Illuminati Bot, and he has like he has a mustache. I'll show a picture of him. One of the books that he recommended about like CIA tricks. It was like I got the book. It was about fucking like magicians and shit, and I was like, yo, this is not what the CIA is like. That guy is not real. That guy, I'll find him so you guys can know. Maybe we'll do his content next. We'll make a list. We'll just keep doing these until I guess until it just kind of stops.
The exact title, but military.
Ian Carroll?
Yes.
Ian Carroll.
That's it.
Yeah, Ian Carroll, ridiculous guy.
Name a couple of them that people could delve.
Powell, and it's basically. I can't remember the exact title, but military. I'll have to give you the name. I'll just scramble it.
There's UFOs in Government,
Yes.
Historical Inquiry.
Yes.
I can't remember the name.
What's going on? Another is by Robert Powell, and it's basically. I can't remember the exact title, but military. I'll have to give you the name. I'll just scramble it.
There's UFOs in Government,
Yes.
Historical Inquiry.
Yes, that's it.
UFOs in Government, a historical inquiry. Okay. All right. Well, so for everybody who's interested, that's a good place to start. Any closing words, sir?
Think of this as an intelligence test and hope that you pass.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much for talking to me today.
Okay.
Much appreciated. Very good to meet you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, I'm so glad I waited to watch the last bit of that podcast until just now. That's hilarious. He brings up two books. This expert on time brings up two books that just, I don't know. We should read those books, but maybe we should pull them out and see what's in there and investigate what led him on this journey. UFOs and government. Man. Okay, I gotta process this. As like horrifying as the core of a lot of this is, because we are talking about, they've killed people in the past, and they have caused me a lot of trouble in my own life, a lot of trouble. They probably killed 5 years off my life with their like psyopic war, psychological attrition nonsense, whatever they're doing to me. I'm fine now. I'm pretty resistant, and I'm pretty good at pointing them out. Isn't that right? So, anyways, I thank you guys really much for watching. We'll try and get another one soon. Maybe we'll try and do this like twice a week or every week. But we'll just, like I said, we'll just keep doing this until we run out. So, anyways, thank you guys for watching. Have a great evening. Good night. Bye.
And I tell my colleagues, don't tell me there's no evidence if you haven't spent at least a day looking into the evidence. If you want me to give you the books, I'll tell you which ones to start with. And if you can refute 5 of the stories in those books, then I'll stop working.
Garry Nolan, 6 out of 10.